The betrayal. A perfect life shattered. I used to believe in fairy tales. After all, I spent every day creating them for other people. My name is Emma Rivera, and I am one of the most sought-after wedding planners in Manhattan. For the past 8 years, I have turned dreams into reality, transforming ordinary venues into magical spaces where love stories reach their happiest chapter. Ironic, isn't it, that the woman who perfected the art of happy endings never saw her own tragedy coming? It was a Tuesday afternoon in late September when my world collapsed. The autumn sun was painting golden streaks across my office windows, and I was humming along to a romantic playlist while reviewing floral arrangements for the Henderson wedding. My phone buzzed with a text from David, my fiancé of 3 years. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. I smiled at the screen, my heart warming at those 2 words he always ended his messages with. David Chun was everything I had ever wanted. A successful architect with kind eyes and a gentle smile, he had proposed to me on a rooftop overlooking Central Park, with fairy lights and violins, like something out of one of my own wedding designs. We had been together for 5 years, and our own wedding was just 3 months away. The discovery that changed everything. My assistant, Riley, had left early for a dentist appointment, so I was alone in the office when I realized I had forgotten to email the final guest list to our caterer. I reached for my laptop, but my hand knocked over my coffee mug, sending a brown wave across my desk. In my panic to save my papers, I grabbed David's iPad from my drawer. He had left it at my office last week after we reviewed our honeymoon plans together. I planned to use it just to send the email. That was all. But when I unlocked it, his Messages app was open, and a name at the top of the screen made my blood run cold. Sophie Hart. My best friend since college. My maid of honor. The woman who had introduced me to David at her birthday party 5 years ago. My fingers trembled as I clicked on the conversation. What I saw made the room spin around me. Months of messages. Photos I couldn't unsee. Plans made in my absence. Declarations of love that should have been mine alone. The latest message was from just 2 hours ago. Can't wait to see you tonight. Emma thinks I'm working late. I'll be at your place by 8. I sat frozen, staring at the screen as my perfect life crumbled into dust. How long had this been happening? I scrolled up, my heart breaking with each swipe. 6 months. They had been seeing each other for 6 months. While I was planning our wedding, choosing flowers that represented eternal love, tasting cakes that would celebrate our union, my fiancé was sleeping with my best friend. The mask of composure. The rational part of my brain told me to scream, to throw things, to call David immediately and demand answers. But something else took over, something cold and calculating that I didn't recognize. I carefully wiped away my tears, took screenshots of everything, and sent them to my personal email. Then I closed the iPad and placed it exactly where it had been. I went home that evening and cooked dinner. When David arrived at midnight, smelling faintly of Sophie's perfume, a scent I knew as well as my own, I kissed him hello and asked about his day. He lied smoothly, talking about a difficult client and a project deadline. I smiled and nodded, and inside, I felt something in me transform into steel. The next morning, I met Sophie for our weekly coffee date. She gushed about her new promotion, complained about her mother's meddling, and asked if I needed help addressing wedding invitations. I sipped my latte and talked about centerpiece options, never once letting my mask slip. She had no idea that I knew. That I had seen the photos she sent to my fiancé, wearing the lingerie I had helped her pick out during our shopping trip last month. A plan takes root. That night, alone in my apartment while David worked late. Actually late this time, I checked his location, I sat at my kitchen table and made a decision. I could confront them, end the engagement, and walk away. That would be the mature, dignified response. I would be the victim, they would be the villains, and everyone would pity me. But I wasn't interested in pity. I was interested in justice. I opened my laptop and began to plan. Not just any plan, but the most elaborate, perfect revenge scheme I could devise. And I had the ideal venue for it. Our wedding. The event I had been planning for months, that 300 guests would attend, that both our families had invested time and money into. The day that was supposed to be the happiest of my life would become the stage for the greatest show I would ever produce. I would not cancel the wedding. I would not confront them privately. Instead, I would let them think they had gotten away with it. I would continue planning, continue smiling, continue playing the role of the blissfully unaware bride. And on our wedding day, in front of everyone who mattered to us, I would reveal the truth in a way they would never forget. The thought should have scared me. The old Emma would have been horrified at the idea of such public humiliation, of stooping to their level. But the old Emma had died the moment she saw those messages. The woman sitting at this table, dry-eyed and determined, was someone new. Someone who understood that sometimes the best revenge isn't moving on. It's making sure they never forget what they lost. Enter Marcus Westwood. The universe has a strange sense of timing. The very next day, I had a consultation with a new client, a wealthy businessman who wanted to plan a surprise vow renewal for his parents' 40th anniversary. His name was Marcus Westwood, and when he walked into my office, I felt an unexpected jolt of recognition, though I was certain we had never met. He was tall, with dark hair touched with silver at the temples, and eyes that seemed to see too much. When he shook my hand, his grip was firm and warm, and he held my gaze a moment longer than necessary. "Miss Rivera," he said, his voice deep and slightly rough. "I've heard you're the best at what you do. I need someone who can create something truly unforgettable." "Unforgettable is my specialty," I replied, gesturing for him to sit. As I pulled out my tablet to take notes, I felt his eyes on me, studying me with an intensity that should have made me uncomfortable, but somehow didn't. We talked for an hour about his vision, an elegant garden party with touches of old-world romance. His parents had met in Italy, and he wanted to recreate the magic of their early courtship. As he spoke, I found myself relaxing, genuinely smiling for the first time since I had discovered David's betrayal. "You have a gift for this," Marcus said when we finished. "Most people just hear logistics when I describe what I want. You hear the story. Every event is a story," I said. "My job is to make sure it's one worth remembering." He nodded slowly, then did something unexpected. He reached across the desk and gently touched my hand. "May I ask you something personal, Miss Rivera?" I should have pulled away, should have redirected to professional boundaries. Instead, I found myself nodding. "Whatever happened in the last few days," he said quietly, "whatever put that shadow in your eyes, don't let it dim your light. People like us, we're survivors. We take the pain and we transform it into something beautiful." I stared at him, shocked. How could he possibly know? But before I could ask, he stood, handed me his business card, and smiled. A smile that didn't quite reach his eyes but held understanding in its depths. "I'll be in touch about the anniversary party," he said. "But Emma, may I call you Emma? If you ever need someone to talk to, someone who understands what it's like to be betrayed by people you trusted, my number is on that card." Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. Sometimes it's about rising so far above them that they can't even see you anymore. He left before I could respond, leaving me alone with his words echoing in my mind and a strange warmth in my chest where only cold fury had been. The Web Titans. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a woman possessed. During the day, I was the perfect bride and loyal friend. I attended dress fittings with Sophie, laughed at David's jokes, and discussed honeymoon itineraries with enthusiasm. I even helped Sophie choose her maid of honor dress, complimenting how beautiful she would look standing beside me at the altar. But at night, I became someone else entirely. I hired a private investigator named Rebecca Stone, a former FBI agent who now specialized in infidelity cases. Within days, she provided me with evidence that made the messages on David's iPad look like innocent flirtation. Hotel receipts, restaurant reservations for two during times they had told me they were elsewhere, photos of them together, holding hands, kissing, looking at each other the way David used to look at me. The worst part? They had been planning their own future together. Rebecca uncovered emails between Sophie and a real estate agent, looking at apartments they could share after the wedding. They weren't even trying to be careful anymore. They had become arrogant in their deception, confident that I was too naive, too trusting, too in love to ever suspect. I filed everything away in a folder on my laptop labeled Wedding Surprise, which was technically true. I was planning quite the surprise. Marcus called me 3 days after our initial meeting, ostensibly to discuss his parents' party. But after 20 minutes of reviewing venue options and menu selections, he shifted the conversation. "How are you holding up?" he asked, and there was such genuine concern in his voice that I felt my carefully constructed walls begin to crack. "I'm managing," I said, keeping my voice steady. Managing isn't living, Emma. And planning elaborate revenge schemes while pretending everything is fine. That takes a toll. I froze. How did you? Because I've been there, he said quietly. 7 years ago, my wife was having an affair with my business partner. I found out 3 weeks before our 10th anniversary. Everyone kept telling me to take the high road, to walk away with dignity. But I couldn't. I needed them to understand what they had done, what they had destroyed. What did you do? I whispered. I'll tell you when we meet. This isn't a conversation for the phone. Have dinner with me tomorrow night, Emma. Not as a client and wedding planner, but as two people who understand that sometimes closure requires confrontation. I should have said no. I was still engaged, even if that engagement was a sham. But I found myself agreeing, giving him the address of a small Italian restaurant I loved, far from my usual haunts where no one would recognize us. Dinner and revelations. The restaurant was dimly lit, with candles on every table and soft Italian music playing in the background. Marcus was already there when I arrived, looking somehow different in casual clothes, more approachable, more human, but no less intense. Thank you for coming, he said, standing to pull out my chair. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, I admitted. This feels like I'm crossing a line. The line was already crossed when they betrayed you, he said simply. This is just you choosing not to suffer alone. Over wine and pasta, he told me his story. His wife, Catherine, and his business partner, James, had been having an affair for 2 years. They had been planning to run off together, to start a new life using money they had embezzled from the company Marcus had built from nothing. I found out by accident, Marcus said, his jaw tight with remembered pain. I came home early from a business trip and walked in on them. Not in my bed. That would have been almost predictable. They were in my study, at my desk, going through financial documents, calculating how much they could take. What did you do? I asked, leaning forward. I backed out silently. They never knew I had seen them. Then I spent 3 months building a case, gathering evidence, consulting with lawyers and forensic accountants. On the night of our anniversary party, an elaborate affair she had planned, supposedly to celebrate our love, I had her and James arrested in front of all our friends and family. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. I gasped. You had them arrested at your anniversary party? I did, he said, meeting my eyes. And in that moment, standing there watching them being led away in handcuffs while our guests stood in shocked silence, I felt nothing. The victory I had imagined, the satisfaction of revenge, it was hollow. Because revenge doesn't heal the wounds, Emma. It just proves you can inflict them too. His words hit me like cold water. Are you telling me not to go through with my plan? No, he said, reaching across the table to take my hand. I'm telling you to make sure you know why you're doing it. If it's to hurt them the way they hurt you, you'll end up destroying yourself in the process. But if it's to reclaim your power, to stand up for yourself and refuse to be a victim, then do it with your head high and your conscience clear. I sat in silence, processing his words. The waiter refilled our wine glasses, and the restaurant's noise faded into white noise around us. Marcus, I finally said, why are you helping me? You barely know me. He smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Because 7 years ago, I wish someone had talked to me the way I'm talking to you now. I wish someone had helped me understand that revenge and justice aren't always the same thing. And because, he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully, because from the moment I walked into your office, I saw someone extraordinary, someone who deserved better than what life had dealt her. And I thought, maybe I could help. There was something in his gaze that made my heart skip, not attraction, not exactly, but connection, recognition. Two wounded people who understood each other's pain. Tell me about your wedding plan, he said. Let me help you make it perfect. And so I did. I told him everything about David's lies, Sophie's betrayal, the evidence I had gathered, and my plan to reveal it all during my reception speech. I expected him to try to talk me out of it, to counsel forgiveness or walking away. But instead, he listened carefully, asked questions, and then said something that surprised me. It's a good plan, but it's missing something crucial. What? An exit strategy. You're planning the explosion, but not what happens after the smoke clears. You need to think beyond that moment of revelation. What do you want your life to look like the day after? The week after? The year after? I realized I hadn't thought that far ahead. My entire focus had been on the confrontation, not on what came next. I want to be free, I said slowly. I want to rebuild my life without them in it. I want to prove that their betrayal didn't break me, that I'm stronger than their lies. Marcus nodded. Then let's make sure that's the story everyone remembers. Not the scandal, not the drama, but your strength, your resilience, your grace under fire. We talked until the restaurant closed, planning and refining until my revenge transformed into something else, something more purposeful, more meaningful. By the time Marcus walked me to my car, I felt different. Still determined, still angry, but no longer consumed by the need for destruction. Thank you, I said, turning to face him in the parking lot. For understanding. For not judging. We all deal with betrayal differently, he said. There's no right way to heal. But whatever happens next, Emma, promise me you won't lose yourself in the anger. Promise me that when this is over, you'll focus on building something beautiful from the ashes. I promised, and as I drove home that night, I realized that Marcus Westwood had become something unexpected, not just a client, not just an ally, but a friend. Someone who understood the darkness I was walking through because he had walked it himself. The calm before the storm. The next 2 months passed in a strange duality. By day, I was the blushing bride, finalizing details for my fairy tale wedding. By night, I was a woman preparing for war, reviewing evidence, rehearsing my speech, and coordinating with Rebecca to ensure everything was documented and legal. David and Sophie grew bolder, stealing more time together, their lies becoming more elaborate and their affection for each other more obvious, at least to my now watchful eyes. I wondered how I had ever been blind to it, how I had missed the lingering glances, the private smiles, the way Sophie's hand would brush against David's arm just a moment too long. But I smiled through it all. I laughed at David's stories. I accepted Sophie's help with wedding favors. I even encouraged them to spend time together. You two should grab lunch. You're both so stressed, you could use a break. And watched them exchange excited glances, thinking they had fooled me completely. Marcus and I met weekly, ostensibly to plan his parents' anniversary party, but really to refine my strategy. He helped me see angles I had missed, potential pitfalls to avoid. More importantly, he reminded me constantly of who I was beyond this betrayal. A successful businesswoman, a creative force, a person worthy of genuine love. Don't let them rewrite your story, he told me one evening over coffee. Yes, they betrayed you. But that's not the end of your tale. It's just the beginning of a new chapter. One where you're the hero, not the victim. His words became my anchor. Every time I felt myself drowning in anger or hurt, I remembered them. This wasn't about them anymore. This was about me reclaiming my narrative. 2 weeks before the wedding, David's mother called me, excited to discuss the seating chart. As we talked, she mentioned how happy she was that David had found me, how perfect we were together, how she had always hoped he would marry someone like me. He's so in love with you, Emma, she said warmly. I've never seen my son this happy. You've brought light into his life. I smiled and thanked her, but inside, my heart ached. Not for David. I was done grieving what we had lost, but for her, for all the people who would be caught in the explosion I was about to detonate. Innocent casualties of someone else's betrayal. That night, I called Marcus, suddenly uncertain. There are going to be people hurt by this, I told him. People who did nothing wrong. David's parents, our friends, guests who came to celebrate love and will instead witness its destruction. I know, Marcus said gently. And that's the hardest part of exposing betrayal, the collateral damage. But Emma, those people deserve to know the truth. They deserve to understand that the marriage they're celebrating is built on lies. And most importantly, you deserve to not have to carry this secret alone, to not have to pretend everything is fine when your heart is breaking. But is public humiliation really justice? Or is it just cruelty? There was a long pause before Marcus answered. That's something only you can answer. But let me ask you this. If someone you loved was about to marry a person who was cheating on them, would you want them to go through with it? Or would you want them to know the truth, however painful? His question clarified everything. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth. About refusing to participate in a lie that would affect not just me, but everyone who cared about us. I'm ready, I told Marcus. Whatever happens next, I'm ready. Good, he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. Because tomorrow, we're going to put the final pieces in place. And Emma, I'm proud of you. not for planning this confrontation, but for having the courage to face the truth and demand better for yourself. As I hung up the phone, I looked at the calendar on my wall. 14 days until the wedding. 14 days until everything changed. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and began my final preparations. The old Emma had believed in fairy tales. The new Emma was about to write her own story, one where the princess didn't need rescuing because she was strong enough to save herself. The setup. The game begins. 13 days before my wedding, I woke up with absolute clarity. The woman staring back at me from the bathroom mirror looked different, stronger, sharper, more focused. I had spent 2 months drowning in betrayal and anger. Now, it was time to channel that energy into something productive. My first move was strategic. I called Sophie and asked her to meet me for brunch. Just us girls, I said. One last chance to spend quality time before the wedding chaos consumed us both. She agreed eagerly, probably relieved that I still seemed clueless about her affair with my fiancé. We met at a trendy cafe in Soho, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs. Sophie arrived 10 minutes late, as usual, wearing a designer dress I recognized from her Instagram. She hugged me tightly, and I forced myself not to pull away from her touch. "You look amazing," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Wedding diet working?" "Something like that," I replied with a smile. "Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you about something important." Her face went pale for just a second, so quick I almost missed it. "Oh, what's that?" "I want to give you a special role in the wedding," I said, watching her carefully. "Beyond being my maid of honor, I want you to do a reading during the ceremony. Something about love and friendship and loyalty." The relief on her face was almost comical. "Emma, I would be honored. Really, you know how much your friendship means to me." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand, maintaining eye contact. "I do know. That's why this means so much to me. I've already picked out the perfect reading. It's about how true friends would never betray each other, no matter what. About loyalty that stands the test of time." Sophie's smile faltered slightly, but she recovered quickly. "That sounds beautiful. Send it to me, and I'll practice." "Oh, I will," I assured her. "I'll send it to you the morning of the wedding. I want it to be a surprise for everyone else." We ordered food and spent the next hour talking about wedding details, her job, her dating life. She actually complained about being single, sitting there lying to my face while sleeping with my fiancé. I nodded sympathetically, asked follow-up questions, and mentally added every deception to the list of evidence I was compiling. As we were leaving, Sophie hugged me again. "I'm so happy for you and David," she whispered. "You two are going to have such a beautiful life together." "Thank you," I said, my voice steady. "I'm counting on you to make sure this wedding is unforgettable." "It will be," she promised. "Trust me, it will be." She had no idea how right she was. Building the evidence wall. That afternoon, I met with Rebecca, my private investigator, in her small office in Brooklyn. She had called me that morning with news she said I needed to see in person. "Emma," she said, gesturing for me to sit down. "I've compiled everything into one comprehensive file. But I need to warn you, some of this is hard to look at." She opened a thick folder and spread photos across her desk. David and Sophie at restaurants, hotels, walking hand in hand through Central Park. Timestamps and locations documented every encounter. But what caught my attention was a different set of documents. "What are these?" I asked, picking up what looked like apartment listings. "They've been apartment hunting together," Rebecca said quietly. Sophie told the real estate agent that she and her boyfriend were looking to move in together after his divorce was finalized. My stomach dropped. "Divorce?" "David's been telling Sophie that you two have been having problems. That the wedding is just for show, to make his parents happy, but that he plans to divorce you within 6 months and marry her instead." I sat back, stunned. It wasn't just an affair. It was a complete betrayal of everything we had built. David had been planning to use me, to go through with this wedding as some sort of elaborate charade, only to discard me once he had secured whatever he wanted from the marriage. "There's more," Rebecca said hesitantly. "I looked into their finances. Sophie has been having money problems. She's maxed out 3 credit cards and is behind on her rent. And David took out a substantial loan 3 months ago. For what? I'm not sure yet. But Emma, I think you need to consider that this might be about more than just an affair. There might be a financial angle here too." My mind raced. My father had passed away 2 years ago, leaving me a considerable inheritance that I had kept in a separate account. David knew about it. We had discussed using some of it for a down payment on a house after the wedding. Can you find out what that loan was for? I asked, my voice hard. I'm already on it. Give me 48 hours. I left Rebecca's office feeling sick, but also vindicated. This wasn't just about exposing an affair anymore. This was about preventing David from financially ruining me the way he had emotionally destroyed me. Marcus's confession. That evening, Marcus invited me to his penthouse apartment in Tribeca under the pretense of showing me potential anniversary party venues nearby. But when I arrived, I found him standing on his balcony, looking out over the city with a glass of whiskey in his hand. I need to tell you something, he said without turning around. Something I should have told you from the beginning. My heart began to race. What is it? He finally turned to face me, and I saw conflict written across his features. I didn't meet you by accident, Emma. The anniversary party is real, but that's not why I came to your office. I took a step back. I don't understand. 6 months ago, David came to me for investment advice. He wanted to discuss a business opportunity, something involving your inheritance. He mentioned his fiancée was a wedding planner, and I looked you up out of curiosity. Then, about 2 months ago, I was at a restaurant and saw him there with another woman. They were very affectionate. My mouth went dry. You knew about the affair before you came to my office? Yes, Marcus said, his expression pained. And when I realized who you were, I wanted to warn you. But I didn't know how without seeming like a stranger with an agenda. So I invented a reason to meet you professionally, thinking I could find the right moment to tell you the truth. But you didn't need to warn me, I said slowly. Because I already knew. I realized that the moment I met you. I saw it in your eyes, that same pain I had carried, that determination to seek justice. So I stayed to help you. But Emma, I should have told you the truth about how I knew. I should have been angry, should have felt manipulated. But instead, I felt oddly grateful. Why did you really want to help me? Marcus set down his glass and walked closer. Because when I looked at you, I saw someone worth saving from the same mistakes I made. Because somewhere along the way, helping you stopped being about redemption for my own past and started being about genuinely caring what happened to you. The air between us felt charged with something I wasn't ready to name. Is there anything else I should know? Yes, he said quietly. David's business opportunity that he wanted my help with? He wanted to invest your inheritance in a venture that I immediately recognized as a scam. I told him no, that it was too risky. He became angry, said I didn't understand opportunity when I saw it. I think he planned to go through with it anyway, using your money without your knowledge. Rage flooded through me, hot and overwhelming. He was going to steal from me. That's what I believe, yes. And Emma, there's one more thing. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. This is James, my former business partner, the man who had an affair with my wife. I looked at the photo and gasped. I know him. He's one of David's clients. They've had lunch together several times. Marcus nodded grimly. Birds of a feather. After James got out of prison, he rebuilt his life as a consultant, helping people with questionable investment schemes. I think David met him through work, and that's how this whole plan came together. Everything clicked into place. This wasn't just about David falling in love with Sophie. This was calculated, planned, a conspiracy to use me for my money and then discard me. They think I'm stupid, I said, my voice shaking with anger. They all think I'm some naive, trusting fool who will just hand over everything. They're about to learn how wrong they are, Marcus said. Emma, I know you're angry at me for not being completely honest from the start. But I'm here now, and I want to help you expose not just the affair, but the entire scheme. Are you willing to trust me? I looked into his eyes and saw sincerity, concern, and something else, respect. Marcus had seen me at my lowest and hadn't judged. He had secrets of his own, but he had come clean. And most importantly, he understood exactly what I was going through. I trust you, I said. But from now on, complete honesty. No more secrets. Deal, he said, extending his hand. I shook it, and in that moment, I realized that Marcus Westwood had become more than an ally. He had become essential to my survival. The rehearsal dinner disaster. The rehearsal dinner was scheduled for the Friday night before my Saturday wedding. David's parents had rented out an elegant private dining room at one of Manhattan's finest restaurants. The guest list included immediate family, the wedding party, and a few close friends, about 30 people total. I had spent the entire day in a state of controlled chaos, managing last-minute wedding details while simultaneously coordinating with Rebecca and Marcus on the final elements of my plan. By the time I arrived at the restaurant, I was exhausted but focused. David was already there, looking handsome in a navy suit, charming his parents' friends with stories about our relationship. When he saw me, his face lit up with what appeared to be genuine joy. He crossed the room and kissed me softly. "There's my beautiful bride," he said. "I've missed you today." "Missed you too," I replied automatically. "Is Sophie here yet?" "Just arrived. She's in the bathroom freshening up." I moved through the room, greeting guests, accepting congratulations, playing the role of the happy bride. My future mother-in-law, Patricia, pulled me aside with tears in her eyes. "Emma, dear, I just want you to know how grateful I am that David found you. You're exactly the daughter I always hoped for." Guilt twisted in my stomach. Patricia was a kind woman who had welcomed me into her family with open arms. She didn't deserve what was coming. But I reminded myself of Marcus's words. These people deserve to know the truth. "Thank you, Patricia. That means the world to me." Sophie emerged from the bathroom looking stunning in a red dress that was just slightly too provocative for a family dinner. She made a beeline for David, touching his arm as she laughed at something he said. I watched them together, noting the subtle intimacy in their body language, the way she leaned toward him, the way his hand briefly touched the small of her back. Dinner was served, and as we ate, various people gave toasts. David's father talked about legacy and family. My mother spoke about love and commitment. My younger brother made everyone laugh with embarrassing childhood stories. Then Sophie stood, wine glass in hand, and my entire body tensed. "I want to say something about Emma and David," she began, and the room quieted. "I've known Emma since college. She's my best friend, my sister in every way that matters. And 3 years ago, I introduced her to David, never imagining that I was setting up the greatest love story I've ever witnessed." She smiled at both of us, her performance flawless. "Emma, you deserve every happiness. David, you're getting the most wonderful woman in the world. To see you two together, so in love, so committed, it gives me hope that true love really does exist." She raised her glass. "To Emma and David. May your love story never end." "To Emma and David," the room chorused. I raised my glass and smiled, but inside, I was counting down the hours until I could reveal just how much Sophie believed in true love. After dinner, as people mingled over coffee and dessert, David pulled me out onto a small balcony that overlooked the city. "Cold?" he asked, putting his jacket around my shoulders. "A little," I admitted. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. "This time tomorrow, you'll be my wife." I can hardly believe it. "Neither can I," I said, and it was the most honest thing I had said to him in weeks. "Emma," he said softly, "I want you to know that I've never been more certain of anything in my life. You're it for me. My forever." I turned in his arms to face him. "Really? Forever?" "Forever," he confirmed, kissing my forehead. "I promise you, Emma, I will never give you a reason to doubt my love." In that moment, I almost broke. Almost told him I knew everything. Almost demanded to know how he could stand there and lie so convincingly. But I swallowed the words and simply nodded. "Good," I said, "because I have very high expectations for tomorrow." "I know you do," he laughed. "You've planned every detail perfectly. It's going to be the most beautiful wedding anyone has ever seen." "Oh, it will be memorable," I assured him. "I can guarantee that." The night before, I didn't sleep the night before my wedding. I sat in my apartment, going over every element of my plan, making sure nothing had been forgotten. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Are you sure you want to do this? There's still time to change your mind." I stared at the message for a long time. Was I sure? Once I set tomorrow's events in motion, there would be no going back. Relationships would be destroyed. Reputations would be ruined. Lives would change forever.